If you've been stuck in a relationship that is not serving you, that brings fear, that makes you feel a little bit crazy, that you feel like you're really trying in, but you always end up in a place where you feel like nothing you do is right. If you are constantly walking on eggshells or hypervigilant, if you're worried about how to respond or behave with someone for fear of their behavior, tune in and check out this podcast. I think it's really going to help you.
You're listening to the Intuitive Mastery Podcast. Hi, I'm Kate Connolly, and with over 15 years of intuitive healing and teaching experience, I'm here to help you celebrate intuition and value authenticity to create a world where you have the freedom to live your best life. This podcast is here to teach you how to apply the principles of spirituality, healing, and mindset to have true and lasting joy, all from the inside out. This is the Intuitive Mastery Podcast.
Welcome to today's podcast, and I'm really excited to be connecting with you here. First of all, let's just ground into the space, and if it's safe, if you're not driving or doing anything dangerous, just give yourself a moment to close your eyes and just take a couple of big breaths in, for me as well. And if you want to, place your hands on your heart space just to allow yourself to really connect in. Slow down a bit. Give yourself permission to receive and breathe. So today I wanted to talk about something that's been fascinating me for a really long time. And it's a lot of questions based on what people experience in their spiritual journey. What's happening for them in any particular moment needs to have decisions attached to it. So how do we know when healing is required for a situation? How do we know when we just need to stop and surrender into the moment and just allow things to unfold? And when do we need to really take action? So firstly, I want to talk into the concept of healing. Now, people have this general concept in my experience that if you need healing, there's something wrong with you. Or if you need healing, it's because you're traumatized. Or if you need healing, it's because there's something inherently not working for you in your energy field. The last one is kind of sort of correct, but typically what we're looking for is to see how much imbalance is between how you think and feel on your inside versus what's reflected to you on the outside. So number one is to get really clear about what's happening in your life. Now, there's containers everywhere that deal with this. I do it a little bit. I've got a free quiz. I'll just put the link down below for you. If you just want to have a look at your wheel of life, what's happening in the different areas, career and health and relationships and spiritual work and all of those things, like what are the parts of your life that are not really how you want them to be? And sitting down and having that reflection in the beginning is really important because it starts to give you some direction about what it is that you want to do in your life and where things might not be aligned for you. So what I want to get really clear on is, what does that even look like? If I want to run my own business from home and I'm currently working for other people, then I'm not aligned. All right, that's not where I want to be. I'm not where I want to be. If I only need to take action, as in send a few emails out and start to get clients at my home work, then that's great. That's all I need to do. I need to take action. If I am struggling in any way with that transition, in other words, if there's any suffering whatsoever around that concept of transferring between one to the other, then that's when you need to do healing. That's when the healing is required. Okay? If you're in a place where you want to take that step, You've already taken it. You sent the emails out. You feel really amazing about it. You feel really great about your marketing strategy. You feel really good about it, the whole situation, and you're excited. Then that's when you wait. So if you're not really sure, take a bit of a look at your wheel of life. Have a look at your relationship. Is your relationship functioning in real life how you want it to function inside? If you want to have a really deep, lasting, and loving connection with your partner, and your partner is somewhat absent or neglectful, well, then your inside is not reflecting your outside. And then you've got to start discerning deeper and deeper into that situation. All right. Why is your partner struggling and disconnected? Are they just going through a big transition themselves and you just need to breathe and wait? If that's the case, then maybe you just surrender and wait. If that person is, creating all sorts of behavioral patterns that create suffering for you, that's when you need to do healing. And I really want to be super, super clear here, because this is a very distinct thing that people don't understand. Even if someone else is being the naughty one or being the mean one or whatever it is you want to call it, you are still attracting that unconsciously. Not your fault, not anything to be worried about or frustrated about, but it's still an experience that doesn't reflect what you want to have. And in my experience, that always requires a level of healing, even if you just send compassion to the parts of yourself that are not getting your needs met. So anytime there's suffering associated with that disconnect between the inside and the outside, that's when we do healing. When we aren't suffering, but there's still a leap, that's when we need to take action. When we've taken action and we feel amazing about it, that's when we surrender. And it usually happens in that process as well. It happens in that order. We usually need to heal first, take action second, and surrender last. And the reason we need to do the healing first is because typically what it does is it creates a lot of blocks or barriers, or what people like to call sabotage. So if there's something that you really, really, really want, and not having that thing is creating suffering for you, you must do some healing around it. You can join a spiritual group to do some healing. You can have one-on-ones with a practitioner. You can go to a psychologist. You can go to your energy healer. You can go to whoever it is that works for you and do the healing around that. And it's done. The healing is done when you don't have a charge around it anymore. So let's say, for example, we use the couple situation, and your partner is disconnected and a bit neglectful, and you're really struggling with that situation. And every time you think about connecting with your partner, you get worried, or you get anxious, or you get nervous, or every time you think about your partner, there's all of these feelings that come up, and it's really hard to reconcile. You'll know when the healing is done when you don't get any of those emotions, right? You either feel completely neutral or you feel love. If you don't feel completely neutral or feel love, this is my humble opinion, more healing needs to be done. Okay? The healing doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be difficult. We have sections in that within our intuitive mastery school where you can go in and do some deep, connected healings around certain things. But it's done when there is zero charge left. Okay? So then that's done. When it's done, and then you feel really either neutral or loving towards your partner, there still may be band-aiding that needs to be done, because relationships, especially partnerships, romantic relationships, they're very deep and they're very complicated. And the longer you've been with someone, the more complicated it gets. So you may feel completely neutral, balanced, and happy in one area of your relationship, but then another area might come up and you may need to do some healing around that. Now, if there's been long-term dysfunction, there may be lots and lots and lots of healing that needs to be done until you can either feel neutral or love. Okay? Then if an action needs to happen, and you can do actions as you go, you can kind of do healing and then action and then healing and then action and healing, action, surrender. It's going to depend on the situation. It's going to depend on the person. Okay. But let's say, for example, my partner's been really disconnected lately. I feel really sad that I haven't connected to that person. And so what I need to do then is work on myself. I need to work on my own healing. I need to stop being reactive to that situation. Once I've stopped being reactive to that situation, I then go to my partner and I say to them, hey, I'm feeling this, or I've been feeling this lately. I would really like it if we could please ... I really strongly recommend doing the healing before the action. The action without the healing usually comes from a wounded energetic space. Okay, so if you're coming from a wounded energetic space, you're often going to come from a place of fear, and it's almost always going to land badly with your partner. And this is where radical responsibility in our lives is so important. Okay, if you can give yourself permission and sovereignty around your own healing about anything that's happening in your life, then you will have the ability to shift and change things. And you'll be able to shift and change things without speaking to anybody at all. And that is so powerful. I love that aspect of my work so deeply, because you can shift entire situations based on how you approach it, based on your own energetic healing, based on your own compassion. So once you can clear that and things feel better, then that's when the action is really powerful, okay? Because you've done the healing. The energetic kind of trigger inside of you is gone. So therefore, the energy that you show up within the conversation is different. It's going to be neutral or love. So if you're coming into a situation from a place of neutral or love, it's always going to be received well or better than you expect. Okay, so this is why the sequence is quite important. Once you've had that conversation, and ideally, fingers crossed, your partner has taken that well, then you surrender. You just let it go. Okay, and that person has the choice to either step up or step away, because your vibration has changed around it. If I want a cup of tea in bed in the morning, right? And that's something that's really important to me, because that makes me feel loved and connected and respected and all of the things. And I match that vibrationally by feeling amazing about it. I don't feel triggered. I don't feel unworthy. I don't feel like they don't care. I don't feel any of those things. I just feel amazing. Then I have a conversation with my partner and say, hey, I would really love it if you could do that for me, please. Would you be interested, because you get up before me, in making me a tea? Because that would make me feel loved, respected, honored, whatever it is that you think is going to make you feel, okay? Then your partner has a choice. You've energetically already met yourself at, I deserve this, and I'm okay with this, and I'm good with this, right? So your partner can either do it or they don't. And then depending on how many of those show up in your relationship, you will start getting a really clear picture about whether this partner is the right partner for you or whether they're not. You're going to find the same thing with your workplace, the same thing with friends, the same thing even with your health. Like if you're wanting to change your health status, if something's not quite working for you in your body, you can also make those discernment-based choices around how you're going to address that and how you're going to look after your own health, right? So always heal first. When you think about the idea of healing that particular thing, or if you think about if you've got an illness or whatever it might be, and you feel suffering around it, if you have triggering around it, which most people will, not many people are going to have an illness or have sickness or have something that's going wrong with their health and meet it with love, because that's not actually what they're there for. They're there to teach us about ourselves. So if I wanted to look at an aspect of my health, it would be really important for me to then start connecting to the emotions and to the experiences that come up for me when I think about that particular malady, and also how I would feel if it was completely healed. All right. And once I can become really aware of those two things and the emotions and the issues that come up for me around that, then I do the healing. That's when the healing is necessary. And it usually happens together with health, but it can happen together with other things, where as you become either energetically neutral or feeling love towards something, the actions become almost second nature, right? So if I have a stomach issue and I work and I heal and I do all of the stuff that I need to do to create either neutrality or love towards my stomach issue, then if all I need to do is, drink some kvass or take some probiotics or do a cleanse or clean my liver or drink celery juice, whatever it is that I need to do, then that's what I'll do. And I can usually do that without sabotaging, without stopping myself. And then my malady gets better really quickly. Okay. And then once I start that process of action, it then becomes a process of surrender, unless or until suffering happens again, right? So let's say I have that stomach issue, I deal with it energetically, I then start taking the supplements or whatever it is that I need to do, or I do the exercises that I need to do, and I take action and I'm surrendering to the process, but then all of a sudden I start getting really bad headaches. All right, something else shows up. Suffering happens again. Then I go back into healing. Okay? Seems really complicated, but I promise you it isn't. Heal if you're suffering. Take action when you're healed. And then surrender when you've taken the action. Right? And if we can remember that for ourselves on a regular basis, it's so important, because I have people come to me all the time and they say, oh my gosh, what should I do about this? Like, there's this thing that's come up in my life. And my first question now, these days, is, are you suffering? Like, is this causing you stress? Is this causing you pain? When you think about this, is it bringing up triggers for you? And if the answer is yes, then that's when we do some healing. Okay? And honestly, 99.9% of the time, if you're talking about something at all, it means that it's unresolved. There probably is a level of trigger. So there probably is healing that needs to be done. So if there's something that's constantly coming up for you in your mind and nothing seems to be shifting it, you usually need to do some healing. That's probably pretty much always the go-to thing to start with, okay? Because if you were neutral or love around it, you probably wouldn't need to ask about it. So that's a bit of a red hot tip there. If you think you've healed something, but you're thinking about it 3 times a day, and you're sort of neutral, but you're not really, and you can't seem to get rid of those recurring thoughts, it's not done. It's not done. I wish it was, but it's not. If you have, if you have an experience where you've stopped thinking about it, but then all of a sudden it comes back and you've got all of this pain around it, there's more healing that needs to be done. So it's kind of, at any point when you have triggering or suffering, heal, do some healing work. What kind of healing work are you talking about? Well, for me, I like doing compassion work. I like doing energetic healing. That's the kind of work that I do inside the Intuitive Mastery School. I also do it with my one-on-ones. There's also other things like theta healing and kinesiology and psychology and lots of different modalities that you can go to depending on your comfort level, depending on the practitioner, depending on who you feel safe with. So whatever it is that you choose to do it with the intention that that particular issue or all of the particular issues that are coming up for you can be healed. And just be really patient with that process. Sometimes you can have massive, giant leaps of shifting through one session, but more frequently, you need a series. You need a series of healing sessions and or self-work at home. So if you have someone that can teach you little processes that you can do for yourself outside of sessions, that's also really powerful, because you can be giving yourself healing and forgiveness and compassion and love every day to kind of work through all the little things that come up outside of the big things. So healing is probably one of the most powerful things that we can do, because typically what happens is that we're walking around in our lives with all of these veils in front of our eyes. And these veils are from previous trauma, previous belief systems, previous lives, ancestral patterning, karmic imprints, all of these things that are kind of sitting in front of our eyes as these veils that are kind of between our own soul truth and our reality. And every time we try to see our reality as we know it, we're going to see it through all of those veils. And those veils are not in our highest good. It's not what we're actually looking for and not what we want. So the healing allows us to basically remove those veils, right? It takes the glasses off. It takes all of those filters off, so that ultimately when we're looking at our world can actually start to reflect what we are feeling and thinking and believing on the inside. And this is where our external world starts changing, and it becomes so exciting when we start doing that. Okay? Now, that doesn't mean that we'll potentially be able to manifest everything we want without action. I think occasionally that happens, but usually some action is required. But typically, I would only recommend doing action when you feel energetically neutral or love about something. Okay? But action is almost always required. And surrender is part of the whole process as well. So when I surrender, when I think about surrendering, I think about this concept of my higher self coming through and just guiding me really gently to my next decision, to my next action. And if I come up against a roadblock in anything that I'm trying to create, let's say I'm trying to create something that's a 10-step process, I may have a block at step 1, and then at step 4, and then at step 6, and then at step 9. And at each of those moments, I might need to just pause and look after my own responses to what I'm doing, take a breath, reset, tune back into my action, surrender to the guidance, and then keep going. Okay? And I know that's really hard to do. It's not always an easy process, but when we can start mastering this in our lives, this is when really exciting transformational things happen outside of us. And I just want you to really be okay with the fact that there's probably a lot of things that you need to heal. And this is like one of those big kind of ego death, pride swallowing moments for not only me, but maybe for you as well, because I have done many, many, many years of healing, and I still have stuff that comes up, because ultimately, if I haven't healed it to the depth that I've required to heal it, it's still going to show up as an issue. There's still going to be something there. So I'm going to need to step into something more deeply. I'm going to need to explore it and clear it out and transform it enough so that when I think about it, when I feel into it, I have neutrality or love. And that can be a daunting, difficult process, but I promise you there's ways through. There are ways we can heal. It does happen. It happens every day. And it doesn't have to be hard or difficult. It doesn't have to take years. I'm a full believer in miracles. I'm a full believer in that everything can be healed. Everything can be transformed. We can all get to where we want to get to. And we just need to be mindful in our lives if we're 10 steps away from where we want to be, or are we 1,000 steps from where we want to be? And maybe sometimes, but not always, we need to be a little bit mindful about the amount of time that it might take to take those appropriate amount of steps. Having said that, great leaps can happen, and they happen all the time. Miraculous changes can happen, and they happen all the time. We just need to believe it and know it within us and give ourselves permission to experience that. So healing doesn't have to be a big, scary, I need to lie on the table and tell people my deepest, darkest secrets. It doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to be this dark and scary hole that we dive into. And I know for a lot of people, that's a really scary thought. Once I open that Pandora's box, that's it. I'm never going to get over the emotion. I'm never going to be able to look at myself in the mirror again. I'm never going to feel worthy of the love of others again. You know, there's all of these stories that go with the blocks to healing. But ultimately, if we give ourselves permission and surrender, perhaps at that stage, into a healing state, then amazing and beautiful things can happen. And I've never, ever, in all of my years of doing this, 17 or 18 years of healing, I've never met anyone that's gone through a healing process and went, oh, wow, I'm so bummed I did that. That was the wrong thing. Like, never, ever. Everyone that goes through it always comes out the other side going, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'm so grateful. My life is so much better. I feel so much better inside myself. I'm getting new experiences, life is changing, I feel good, right? And that's what we want to see. That's the changes that we want to have. So remember, if there's suffering, if there's triggers, please heal. If you feel neutral or love, take action. If you've taken the action and everything feels aligned, then surrender. Always allow your higher self to come in and guide you through those decisions. And if you don't know how to do that, jump in and join my Intuitive Mastery School. We have loads and loads of classes to help you with that. We have live classes every Wednesday morning, Sydney time, 6 a.m. And we take you through loads of different series on how to trust, how to ask questions, when to discern, when to heal, and how to heal. And then also how to take action. What does that look like? And what surrendering looks like, how to slow down to listen to our guidance. So if you want to join, all of those links are below. I'll chuck the quiz down there as well. Thank you so much for joining in. I hope that was helpful. But just give yourself a moment to look at your life and discern and get curious about what's working and what isn't working. If your desires are grossly different to what's happening on the outside of you, that is your invitation to step into something deeper. It's not scary, I promise you. I'm sending loads and loads of love and light your way. And I will see you next time.